Val, what's your perspective on this situation? So your opponent's backhand is good, but it's still weaker than their forehand. How do you approach that rally to win it?
Keep attacking it. Keep digging at it.
Keep digging at what? The backhand or
The
the forehand?
backhand.
At the backhand.
It's weaker than his forehand.
It's weaker than his forehand, but still good. And that's the key thing, is it's still good. It's not dog shit. If it's dog shit, you just break it down, right? And there's definitely some players where you just, like Nadal, just sledgehammer over and over and over again at someone's backhand. But even Nadal will do this one strategy that if the backhand is okay, and sometimes you can go to a backhand and then they get it back and you're like, okay, I'm going to go even harder. And they get it back. And then your attempt of going harder and deeper and wider actually could pose more risk. And so then there's a better strategy, and that is attacking the forehand. And I remember the first time I learned this, I was like, really? And then I applied it to one of the guys that we play with who has a killer forehand. So I was like, oh, I want to escape the forehand and just hit to his backhand. But then usually people have really good forehands, they run around their backhand. So then it's actually hard to hit to the backhand because you're like, shit, I got to get wider or something. And then you actually impose risk because you're going too close to the lines. And so then I was like, wait, he's standing so far over to protect his backhand. Let me attack the forehand. He may get to it. He may hit it back. But a running forehand ain't easy. And then when he does, I've now got a much bigger target to go back to the backhand. And so this strategy that is really common is backhand, attack forehand, backhand, attack forehand. And then potentially on one of the backhands, you then come in and close the point. That is.
I was just gonna ask you, because if you're attacking the backhand, let's say twice, 3 times, if they're protecting their backhand by hitting their forehand, you could try and open up the court on the other side.
Totally. And so that I remember when I learned that strategy, it just like I saw the game very differently, where you're usually afraid of people's forehand if they have a good one, but you're like, okay, let me move them over to the backhand side, then let me attack the forehand, and then let me go back to the backhand, and hopefully by them running to their backhand, it'll cough up a even weaker backhand that they can't run around, and then you can come in and close or hit an easier shot.
Yeah.
Now, how do we work on this?
So are we running around the backhand to hit a forehand?
Yeah. So one person is running around their backhand to hit a forehand, or just you're simulating that their backhand is weaker and you need to learn how to attack a forehand and then go back to the backhand.
For sure. So one of the things, I actually picked this up from one of my old mentors and coaches, Greg Lesueur from Online Tennis Instruction, who hopefully we're going to have on the show at some point soon. But one thing that he taught me that we use all the time is something called the C dance. So the letter C, C dance. So basically, if you imagine you stick out if you're a righty, obviously if you're a lefty, the opposite arm. But if you're a righty, stick out your left arm out in front of you, full extension, and you're going to hold a tennis ball in your hand. What you want to do is you want to actually, as your arm is stretched out in front of you, run around. So literally shuffle around your hand while the ball in your hand stays in the same spot. So basically, while the ball stays there, you want to run around it while the ball stays in the same spot. So you can actually basically get to the side of the ball. And that goes for the forehand. You can practice the same thing for your backhand. Run the other way. So shuffle around your arm and the ball. So now you're facing the other way for your backhand. And this literally just trains your footwork in your mind, obviously, to get around the ball, not just try and get out of the way, but actually create the space that you need in order to create that inside out forehand. So that's one.
That's okay. So do you think attacking the forehand has to be done with an inside out forehand in a situation where, well, if I'm attacking a righty's forehand, that's going to be an inside out forehand for me as a lefty, or a forehand down the line. If a righty wants to attack the forehand of a right-handed player, you're going to be hitting inside in
inside in.
or a cross court ball
But you still have to listen. At the end of the day, you still have to get
or a
around the ball.
backhand down the line.
You
And
could.
so do you think a person who is like trying to do this strategy shouldn't try the backhand down the line and they should be doing a run around, either forehand cross court or run around inside in?
I mean, listen. What's your weapon? Like, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, like the argument is, could you do an attacking backhand? Of course you could. For most of us, our more powerful shot is a forehand. So I'm going to look for me personally. I'm going to look for my forehand almost every time. Now, I belong to the group of players that has a weaker backhand. Totally, I'm aware of that.
Yeah, agree
But
with
for
you.
most people, your forehand is your stronger weapon. You're going to look for an attacking shot to be your forehand because you have probably more control, more power.
Mhm.
So even if it's an inside in, you still have to get around the ball, create that space, and then
I
go
find
down.
I find this one happens a lot as you get like at my level. So like my backhand is not a weapon, but it is solid. And so I've trained it to become solid. I'm trying to make it a weapon. But for now, if someone was to go to my backhand, it's like I can just get that back cross court. And then I'm gonna try to run around,
Until
and then I'm
what
gonna try to
happens?
run around it and get my forehand in there, which then I open up even my forehand. So that I know people attack my forehand because
For sure.
I do the same thing.
Well, listen, I mean, even I was doing one of the coaching courses I was in recently. One of the drills that we worked on is the cross court rally, like being aggressive at the baseline and staying in the cross court rally. And it's very important to your point. You're hitting and you're staying aggressive. You're staying in the rally, cross court. But ultimately, what are you waiting for? You're going to hit your second window over the net, cross court. You're ultimately waiting for that shorter, hopefully shorter ball that you can attack on with your forehand.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, you can still attack with your backhand, but usually it'll be a forehand.
Okay, so my favorite drill for this one is a variation of the butterfly. The butterfly is like one of my favorite drills ever. I was introduced to it by these like South American people in the Vilas camp in Punta Cana. And so the kids are down there playing to train for futures. So the butterfly drill, in its essence, is one person goes cross court, one person goes down the line. And so it's just constant running side to side to one person's hitting cross court and the other person's hitting down the line. And so it just constantly, and the shape of your shots end up looking like a butterfly. And a variation of that is then you can do two cross courts and then a down the line, because that's more simulating of a game. Cross court, okay, another person opens up the court, goes down the line. Then that person is on defense and returns cross court, and then cross court, and then the other person opens up down the line. And so in this one, you can vary it up where when you're in the backhand cross court, one person's job is to run around, hit an inside out forehand, and then an inside in forehand. And the other person hits that forehand cross court in defense. Then the person redirects it back to the backhand. So one person is the attacker and is constantly trying to go backhand, and that backhand, the other person's going cross court. And then the person, when they hit that backhand cross court, I'm going to hit my first backhand cross court to you. My second one, you hit back to me, I'm going to run around, hit inside out forehand. And then the third one, I'm going to hit inside in. And then you just keep going down. And when they do these drills, they say a good marker for a player is how many minutes in a row you can do these drills without missing. And they said the futures benchmark, they said, was 7 minutes. That if you can hit solid rally balls, you're not going for winners, you're just hitting good rally balls.
It's a cooperative
with
drill.
a cooperative drill.
Yep.
I was like, I got to 2 minutes and I was like, wanting to keel over.
Sure. That was actually going to be my next question for you. First of all, butterfly is a great drill for anyone who's looking to improve their consistency. And again, the key is it is cooperative. It's not competitive. So you're not going for winners. Your goal, your objective is to make sure your partner has a great ball to hit. So you're looking for a good ball, deep ball, but you're looking for consistency. My question for you, Grant, is for those people who perhaps can do 2 minutes, they can't even do 30 seconds because somewhere along the lines it breaks down. Is there an alternative? Is there a drill that's similar that you can reproduce, which may be more geared towards perhaps beginners, someone who can't necessarily maintain 30, 40 seconds, a minute, 2 minutes, etc.?
Yeah. So one, I would say that there is a quality of ball and a size of court that you can do this for a minute to 2 minutes. You may be going into the mini court. So if you make the court smaller and you hit the ball softer, then you might be able to do this 20, 30, 40 times in a row with someone. And then the goal is that you move back to the baseline and you hit a harder ball and until you can't do it multiple times in a row. So my first thing would say, if you can't do it too many times in a row, hit it softer from the baseline and don't hit so hard, and focus on the control and the pattern recognition of it all. And then if you still can't do it from the baseline at a 50%, then go to a short court. And just to get the movement, moving to the side, cross court, then moving around, inside out, and then moving inside in. So just doing the movements and seeing the ball do the pattern so that you can then recreate it at full speed, I think. And then, you could just do a drill where it's like, all right, let's do backhands cross court. And then one person is going to run around and hit it inside out forehand. And then when they do that, the next ball is going to be inside in. If you get it back, great. If you don't, we just let it go and then start all over again. And just you just focus on, like I did a drill today where the number of shots for each one was anywhere from 2 to 6 tops. But it was a good drill for approach shots and volleys and attacking and defense. So a good drill doesn't necessarily have to be 20, 30, 40, 50 balls. It's just to experience the pattern, experience the combination. And so I think just telling a friend, okay, we're going to do backhands cross court, and then we're going to go one backhand cross court. The second ball, I'm going to go inside out, forehand, back to your backhand. You just keep going you tell your partner, you just keep doing backhand cross court to me. And then the third ball, I'm going to go inside in. If you want to go try and get it and hit the ball cross court, and I'll try to hit the ball down line and we'll start all over again. Great. If we can't do it, we'll just start all over again. And then we'll rotate after, 5-10 balls.
Yeah. The one more thing I'll add is I think the mini court is a great idea. If that's still too challenging, use progressive balls. Grab a green dot, grab an orange dot, grab a red dot, even just to experience that progression of here's a drill for a minute that we can do with a foam ball.
Yeah. Oh yeah, good point. My one thing when people say tennis is too hard, I say you're just using the wrong ball then. Just try a different ball. Like for all the pickleballers who deep down want to play tennis. I know it's more than 50% of you. Don't lie. For all those pickleballers, I say tennis is so hard. Okay, just get out a red ball or a green ball and play, because you can hit the stroke and you can learn to feel the spin, because you ain't feeling nothing with that dumbass paddle and wiffle ball. So that's the beauty of tennis. The beauty of tennis is the feeling of the ball and the racket and the running around.
The funny thing is, we actually had a comment today on one of the clips I posted. It's a buddy of mine from Toronto who's a pickleball lover, and he commented. I think he said something to the extent of, or you could just play pickleball. I was trying to decide, should I chirp him or no? I love it.
Oh man. Anyways, that's a whole other kind of worms. All right, next one. Okay, so I think this one small strategy, people don't tend to believe me when I say this one small, so tiny strategy can transform your weaker side, which let's, for example, say backhands, because that's for most people. Their backhands are weaker side. And people are like, how do I make my backhand better? And it's one simple strategy that will turn that backhand into a weapon, and you can do it instantly. Are you ready for this one simple strategy?
I'm ready. What is it? Because I need it.
Run around your backhand. I love it. So this is a tie-in to what we just said in the last one. You want to make your backhand better? Run around it. The pros do it. And it's like people think, oh, it's on my backhand side, I need to hit a backhand. No, you don't. If you can run around it, go for it. If your forehand's that much better, learn the technique. It is harder work, which will give you a great workout, and then you'll become fitter. But you want to transform your backhand instantly, just run around.
Yeah. Do what I do.
And so how do people work on this? Because I'm sure you've taught this a lot. What are the best ways to work on it?
Yeah. So it's, I mean,
And you did that one drill
yeah.
with
So
the
I talk
running around
about
the ball. What's
talking about
another
the
way?
C drill, sorry, the C dance rather. It's funny because we talk about running around your backhand. When you think of the court and you think of, for example, for Grant, for you, how far wide does someone need to hit their shot for you to actually hit your backhand and not your forehand? So, like, at what point do you actually
Hmm.
not run around your backhand and just hit your backhand?
Yeah. So the rule of thumb is if the ball is going to, after it bounces, so the ball comes over the net and it bounces. If it is going to cross the single sideline, because it's an angled ball, before it crosses the baseline, then I will hit a backhand. Like, it's hard to run around that one
Mhm.
unless it's like you're in doubles and you're returning and
Mhm.
you're like
Mhm.
and you want to run around in the alley and do it. But for the most part, if you're kind of just standing right, for me, right of center, for a right-handed player, left of center. Okay, and most people are right-handed, so I'll pretend I'm right-handed for now. So if you're standing a little bit left of center, hitting a backhand cross court, and that person hits it back to you, and it's angled out wide to your left, and it goes across that single sideline, you're gonna just have to hit a backhand cross court again. But if it's coming more down the middle, or it's just gonna bounce and go over the baseline and not cross wide, then you need to learn that crossover opening up step to allow yourself to run around and hit that forehand, inside in or inside out.
Yeah. And,
That's
and
what I would
so,
say. What would you say? Is that
no, for
correct?
sure. So, for every player is different. And so this is why, the C dance that I talked about earlier, as it was coined by Greg LeSueur, is so important because the one main factor is the footwork. I had a junior come to me this summer, and they were getting ready for the tryouts for high performance, and their moms approached me and said, "Hey, my kid, let's call him, I don't know, Josh, just to protect his name, but Josh is suffering on his forehand. He needs to improve his forehand." And I said, "Yeah, let's work on it." Within 30 seconds, I realized it has nothing to do with his forehand. He hits the forehand just fine. It's his footwork. The footwork is just not there. The preparation's not there. That he's late. It's just footwork. So, we did some video analysis. We ran some drills. We literally focused on his footwork and getting his feet set up on time. And right away, he's hitting balls of much cleaner, much better quality. And then I even showed his mom. I said, "Look, his forehand. We haven't touched his forehand. It's all footwork." So in the same way, the ability to get your feet set up as quickly as possible, as efficiently as possible. So it's a few drills you can practice right away. If you're just by yourself and it's just you, you're like me and have no friends. C dance is great. Grab a tennis ball in front of you, run around the ball, shuffle back and forth, back into forehand. In this case, for your forehand, and then once that's done, you can set up a cone on the baseline or just behind the baseline. And your job is to split step, which is, for those of you who don't know, just a quick hop upwards to gain momentum so that you can have an explosive first movement. And you're going to do, I know you mentioned the word crossover, but very important, it's actually a crossover back. So crossover behind, because usually crossover forward, you want to get a quicker step. In this case, if you're running around as a righty, I'm going to split step and I'm going to get my right foot to cross over behind my left foot to open up my hip to get around that ball. Another term is a drop step. I think some coaches use it, but basically a crossover from behind, get around that cone. So your job is to get around that cone as quickly as possible. And you're going to imagine the ball is on top of the cone, create that space with your left arm. If you're a righty, to create that space and time. Practice on your own. If you have a friend, if you've got a buddy, have your buddy or friend start with some hand feeding. Drop easy hand feeds just to your backhand side, which right away, stick your left hand out. If you're a righty, split step, drop step, get around it, and then start hitting inside out forehands. Start slow, start methodically, work just the feeling, the sensation of getting around that ball and also hitting on an angle. Eventually, you can transition into, if your friend wants to feed, you guys can alternate, feed across the net, make it more realistic, feed from the baseline, make it harder, make it wider feeds to really force you to run around. But footwork is key here.
I'm a big fan of shadow swinging and for the footwork component, because you don't need to go to book a tennis court. Tennis courts might be busy. You can do this in your home, your garage, at a gym, just
100%.
literally out in the park, on the beach. Like, you're just practicing your footwork, and you can just and it's a great workout. Like, a Tabata, 20 seconds on, 10 seconds off for 10 rounds, which is simulating how many points might be in a long game, 10 points and all long points. Like that's going to tire you out just practicing your drop crossover step over and over and over again. Do it one side, other side, because you potentially need to do it both directions. You want to get comfortable doing both directions. And then, so many of us, when we go hit with our friend, we just hit cross court balls. So the next time you go hit cross court balls, backhand to backhand, or if you're a lefty, backhand to their forehand, try to just look for as many opportunities as possible to run around and hit a forehand inside out.
Mhm.
Just noticing it and just trying to do it in practice. You'll then start to learn when that ball comes off their racket, you're like, okay, I'm going to go for a run around. And you're like, that was too ambitious. That ball was way too angled. But then you get used to seeing how the ball comes off the racket and which one you can make that quick decision. Yeah, I'm going to run around it versus which one you're like, no, I'm just going to hit this back cross court.
Speaking of seeing, just want to quickly reference our last podcast. You talked about paying attention to the person who doesn't practice their overheads during warm-up. Were you on the lookout for that?
I did, and I did love him, and it did work.
There you go. Honestly, creating and becoming smart players is just tennis through and through.
Yeah. So if you want to make your backhand better instantly, just run around that. Remember that one. It is an absolute game changer. All right. So next one. Okay. So Val, I want you to picture you're in a match. Okay. You've decided you want to serve and volley. What type of serve do you do and where do you do it?
Me personally, serve as hard as you can. No, I'm kidding. For me personally, I'm not a huge, admittedly, I'm not a huge serve and volleyer. So I should be more. But when I do it, it's usually on a slower serve. I look for a second kick serve. For me, what I envision is a kick. Let's say if I'm serving, especially on the ad side, I have a pretty decent kick serve out wide, which buys me more time. It allows me it's a slower serve. I get a chance to recover, run in. It's a little bit slower. They have more time to kind of take some more time to get there. And that just buys me time to get to the net. That's typically what I look for. How about you?
So I will agree that the essence of when you do a serve and volley is you kind of want to slow the serve down. I mean, if you know that a flat serve, they're going to chip a flat serve and that just instantly, it's a slower return. You're trying to find ways to buy time to get to the net. So if there's a certain serve you do where they chip it, that's the best. Just do that serve and come to the net. But in general, if you're playing someone who is trying to hit, top spin, block, bunty, ground strokes off your serve, I just remember experiencing this. I was like, because I have a big serve and I was like, yeah, I'd hit this big serve and I'd be like in my head seeing it happen. I'm like, yeah, what a great serve. And then they would just do a bullet return right past me as I ran to the net because I like to serve and volley a lot. And I was like, and it's because sometimes that hard flat serve can bite you in the ass on a serve and volley because it can come back even faster. So slowing it down. Now, is it a kick or a slice? I think that just depends on which one coughs up an easier return.
I just have a better kick than I have a slice, which is why
right. So one, you got to look at what you have in your toolbox, but say you have both. I actually prefer a slice because a kick, if they're playing close in the baseline, a kick is really easy to get over top and hit down into the net. And as you're coming to the net, then you're going to be getting a lot of volleys at your feet.
Fair enough.
So if the person stands up on my serve, then I may do a slice into the body to jam them up. And slower. If they're a pusher grinder and they stand super far back, I will go wide. But sometimes a wide one, like look at Medvedev, like you serve and volley off him, like he's quite good at that down the line or angled return. Now, I think he's an anomaly. Most people maybe don't have that skill where if they stand really far back, like I got this one friend in Toronto, I'm not going to say his name, but he loves to stand so far back at the baseline that my friend aced him because the ball bounced twice before it got to him. He stood so far back The serve was so short and slow, it bounced twice, and that was how he aced him. And so for him, I love to push him out because that gives even more time. It's running away, and then I get even closer, and then it's just even harder for him to pass.
Now, let me ask you, do you think your decision to slice has to do with you being a lefty?
No, because a slice ball either is running away, which buys more time, or it's jamming into the body, which inherently creates a worse return for most people.
Yeah.
And
I'm just
so,
curious, yeah.
yeah, so the kick I would do if they're standing far back, because then they've committed to hitting the ball on the way down,
Mm-hmm.
and then now you get even more time because they're like, okay, cool, I'm going to let this serve kick, and then I'm going to let it come down, and at that point, I'm already closer to the net. So if you want to serve and volley, probably don't do your hard flat. Change it up, slow it down. Whether that's a kick or a slice, that's totally up to you. But write that down and pull that strategy out when you want to do a serve.
Now, Grant, what do you think about a flat first serve into the body and then coming in?
So I like that in doubles. In singles, it's just the speed for me, because like I serve, 110, 120 or something. Like it's just hard. It's hard for me to get to the net. Like I'm not as fast as I used to be. It's exhausting. Oh my God.
Sorry, what are you whispering there under your breath? Come on. You're slow as a snail. What?
Next, let's go. What's a drill? Okay, what's a drill for a serve volley?
It's all good fun. I feel like if we can combine, I don't know, my somewhat fast speed with your bigger hits.
You should serve and volley you have a big serve too, and
Yeah.
and you have a kick, and so if they're standing far back,
There's
I
only one.
love serve and volleying on second serves, because typically people will stand. A lot of players will stand farther back on a second serve because they made the decision. Okay, I'm just going to let this ball come down, and then I'm just going to hit it at a ground stroke. And at that point, I'm like, sweet, I have so much time to get into the net.
There's only one dilemma, buddy. Serve and volley requires obviously you hit your serve, requires you to go to the net.
Mm-hmm.
Going to the net requires effort, and I'm lazy. I only have so many movements in my body.
This is the perfect lose weight plan. You just got to commit to serve and volley for a season. You'll drop the weight.
Yeah.
Either that or your knees will break.
I'm just so lazy. I'm like, I gotta hit the ball and get to the net. But you're right, I should. So some drills. So at first, there's, for me personally, I think sort of separating these skills required to do this imperative. Number one, obviously, the obvious one is serving. You got to be able to serve. Some people call them specialty serves. I just call them second serves. Practice your slices. Practice your kick serves. Practice consistent. If you can get, I don't even want to mention percentages, but at least 70-80% consistently in on your second serve would be amazing. At least that's my perspective.
I'd go higher. No, I'd
go higher. Yeah, go higher than that, but some people might not be able to.
9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10.
Yeah. Just get
for
it
a
in.
second serve.
Just get it in. But really work on that slice serve, work on that kick serve. For obviously the volley component, once you're at the net, volleys are simple. Again, there's a plethora of exercises you can do. If you got a buddy or two buddies, you can play some Australian. Just work on touch volleys, which means you're receiving the volley into your body and just working on the feel of it. So you're absorbing the pace and you're dropping the ball close to the net, especially in singles. Well, majority of points are actually won when you're at the net with short volleys in singles. And then you can work on your attack. If you have more time and it's a weaker return or ball coming at you, work on the attacking volley where you're adding pace to the ball, you're redirecting the ball. The one thing that I find, especially at the club level, the one skill that's really, really missing, that's just limping. It's the transition period between your serve and your volley. And typically, there are two key ingredients that people miss. The first one is actually as you're running toward the net. is split stepping. So, Grant, you should know this. When does a person split step? At what point? You just hit your serve. They're about to return. They're coming in. When do you split step?
When they make contact with the ball, even slightly after. Now, when you're coming to the net for a volley, you've got even less time. But the reason why you want to split step when you're returning, when you're hitting ground strokes, when you're volleying, when just after they make contact, is because you're looking to land on your 2 feet, absorb energy into the ground, and see what direction the ball is going, and then spring into that direction. And if you split step before they make contact, then you'll have this potential energy in your feet and your legs, and they won't have hit the ball yet, and then you'll just stand up, and then you'll be and then all of a sudden they'll hit the ball, and then you'll have to move. And then if you do it too late, then you're not going to be ready for the ball when it gets there. So you have to time it, simply put, when they hit the ball, when they contact.
And I don't want to move away from this point too quickly because it's so important. What is the point, the main purpose of why we split step? You just kind of touched on it.
To get ready to move.
To get ready to move. It's momentum. It's energy, right? As we split step, as we have that sort of hop, as we're landing, whereas I guess as you're going up and you're coming down, it gives you that extra bounce, the first explosive step to get to your location. Where people miss, especially at the club level, where players really miss the mark is they may not be where they want to end up as their final location. And so they think psychologically, they think, oh man, I'm not there yet. Why am I split stepping? So they just keep running. And as they're running, the ball comes at them, whether it's quick or not, they're not ready to receive that ball. The next thing is if you're not quite there at your mark yet, if you're not split stepping, by split stepping, you're giving yourself a better chance to get, because you don't know where the ball's going to go. As they're about to hit it, it can go any direction. So giving yourself that split step allows you to have a more explosive step in any direction, even if it means it's not where you want it to go originally. And this is why it's so important to split step as soon as they're about to make contact, or I guess as they make contact, because now you're giving yourself that first explosive steps to get to where you need to get to. Now, the second place or second thing that really gets overlooked is the grip change. Technically, this is up for debate, and comment if what your experience is like and how you view grip changes, and because there's so many opinions on this, but typically you're going to have a more continental grip, obviously as you're serving. Now some might be a little bit more towards Eastern, who knows, and this especially is true for when you're hitting, let's say, an inside-out forehand, and you're in your forehand grip. When you're running in, players just forget that left hand if you're a righty, your right hand if you're a lefty, racket turns, right? So that you got to do the grip change because now you're ready for the volley. Otherwise,
yeah,
and that happens to so many players, and I see this all the time, is just you fail to change your grip, so you're not ready for the volley. So working on the transition, so working on drills where you shadow swing a serve, come in, ready for the volley. Even inside out forehands we talked about earlier, change your grip, come in. So work on that. You can shadow swing it.
Do people actually teach serving without a continental grip? Really? What crazy people do this?
I don't want to call them crazy.
Do you?
Guilty. No, I'm kidding. I have heard and I've seen when some coaches, when they teach, especially they teach a second serve, kick serve, sometimes they close the grip a little bit more. So it's a little past continental to close the face a little bit more, or to try and get their players to get away from the sort of the pancake, patty cake serve. They will close the grip a little bit more to force it.
Right.
Again.
Like for slices, I kind of turn it, but it's probably still continent. It's not Eastern, but it's like a little, like if I want to slice, I'm going to turn it a little bit. It's just so much easier to slice if you just.
You know what else you could do?
What?
You could just hit outside of the ball, and that changes the trajectory of the ball.
Yeah, but you just do both, and it's just that's lefty slice.
Or just toss a little further away from your body so you can come around it.
Oh, but then they know you're going to do it. So I'm not. That's another hot take we'll talk about another time. Is should you have a different toss or the same toss for a serve? Anyways, but for drills. So my favorite one for practicing serve and volley is do 5 or 10 serves on the same side to the same place and you tell the person, hey, I'm going to serve T. I'm going to serve wide. I'm going to serve body, whatever you want to do. And you could tell them where you're trying to volley after to make it even harder. Because the idea of telling them where you're going to serve to practice your serve volley combination is they will return it better, which means you then get to do more volleys and it'll be harder, which, you know, in a match, if a person does hit an amazing return off your serve just by guessing or whatever, there's a good player, you want to have practiced that. And so, and seeing how many you win out of 5, and then you start to learn your combinations. So then you can do different serve types and serve placements and see which ones you tend to win more points on when you do these combinations with people. And then that will help you figure out in those pressure moments which serve and when to, you know, which serve volley to do, which combination, where.
That's great.
All right. Picture this. You're in a rally and
You lost me there.
Yep. All right. There you go. Short points in Val singles games.
Yeah.
No, so picture this. You're in a rally and you don't know what to do to win. I know I'm really in your life here. So you're in a rally, you don't know what to do to win. I mean, this has to be the most common experience I know I've experienced because I'm a short point kind of guy. And so I'm trying to like grind it out with these better players. And I'm sitting there hitting balls and my brain is drawn blanks. And it really frustrated me because I'm like, man, as soon as I get out of, if this thing doesn't last like 4 to 6 shots, I'm kind of lost. And so I learned what I think is the number, when in doubt, this is the number one strategy to win a rally. And I want to see if you agree with this one. So I think the most proven rally combination is first hit the ball deep, force a short ball, and then approach and hit the net. Because it's like when you're in the rally, you're trying to give yourself some direction. You could hit the ball deep down the middle. You could hit the ball deep cross court, forehand, backhand. It really doesn't matter. If you can hit a nice deep ball, at some point, you're probably going to get a short ball. And then you can approach the net and hit an approach shot and finish the point at the net. Do you think that's the best strategy for people who find themselves kind of lost in a rally?
I think it's a great strategy. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I can't say if it's the best, but I think it's a great strategy because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to induce, like, ultimately you're trying to, usually when you're in a rally, you're trying to create one of two things. You're either trying to buy time or you're trying to take time away from your opponent. In this case, to your point, if you're stuck in a rally and they're just either better than you or they're out rallying you, welcome to my life as well. You know, as you said, hitting the ball really deep, especially if you're hitting heavy topspin, you're pushing them behind the baseline and they are more likely, more prone to induce a shorter ball. And you're looking, you're kind of like that, you see the gazelle wounded, and you want to attack, you want to pounce. So you get that short ball. That is your cue. You've now hurt them to come in, and now you're taking advantage. You're taking advantage of the short ball, and you're taking control of the point. I think it's a great. I think it's a great strategy.
Because the other options are run them side to side.
Yeah, I was gonna say open the court, create space.
So it's run them side to side, or what I just said is a push, and then you're either approaching, coming to the net, or you could do a deep shot and then a slice drop shot and pull them. A push pull is a common strategy, or a side to side, or hammer a weakness.
Yeah.
Now, a deep ball to a weakness is a strategy, but the thing is sometimes you just can't always do that.
Well, let me ask you this. At a basic level, if you hit a heavy topspin ball down the middle and you push them back behind the baseline, what are you not letting them do?
Attack me.
Right. So you're taking away their any incentive or any ability to attack you. So they might be able to still rally with you and keep the ball in. So, but you're eliminating, for the most part, the opportunity because they're behind the baseline. They really shouldn't be hitting winners from there, right? At least not attempting to. So you're eliminating the possibility, or you're reducing the possibility of them attacking you, number one. And then
Which in the other strategies, I like that point, because in the other strategies, if you hit side to side and you hit a short ball in an attempt to push them side to side, then they could attack you. If you hit a slice drop shot, it could suck, and then they could attack on it. Whereas if you're attempting to hit a deep ball, you either are hitting a deep ball, and that's great, or a so-so ball. They may or may not be able to attack on it, even still.
For sure. And also, like as you mentioned, hitting a slice cross may not be, to execute that shot requires a higher level of mastery. But so to go back to the point, so you're, by hitting deep, pushing them behind the baseline, you're reducing the chances of them attacking you. But also by going down the middle and deep, what else are you reducing?
Angles,
right? So it's a win-win. And so for me, so you're absolutely right. They're behind the baseline. They're going to be hitting either recovery shots or defensive shots, or just a regular neutralizing ball. It's going to be much harder for them to A, attack, and B, open up the court. And so now it's just a matter of, can you outlast them? Can you wait for that shorter ball that you can attack?
I mean, in doubles, it's always, if you can't solve the riddle, hit down the middle. Is like, that's like a doubles phrase, but is that a singles phrase as well?
I haven't heard it.
I know Jack Sock talked about when he was growing up and trying to learn how to win. He said, at the beginning of match, I'll just hit down the middle. And if the player just starts hitting the ball out and that's all I got to do is just hit the ball down the middle, then that's all I'm going to do for the rest of the match. He's like, if that doesn't work, then I'm going to push them side to side. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to come in the net and be aggressive that way. And he kind of had these like stages. And I thought that was really cool to like simplify tennis, because sometimes you just need something. You need a strategy. You need something that's more proven, has a higher percentage likelihood of winning. And deep balls, whether cross court or down the middle, it's just a common strategy. I haven't fully studied Sabalenka. I swear all she does is just crank balls cross court.
I think so.
Like, I think that's her strategy. I think her strategy is hit the fucking ball as hard as I possibly can, cross court. That's it.
You're
and
not wrong.
maybe I'll throw in a down the line and a drop shot. And she's throwing a lot of drop shots lately, which I really like. So she'll do some down the lines every now and then. But I think the majority is like cross court as hard as possible, and then cough up a short ball, and maybe that's when I'll do the down the line. I love her.
I always tell my students, my players, I say, the more tools you have in your tool belt, the better off you'll be. Whether we talk about just the arsenal of like having, can we hit inside out forehands? Can we hit drop shots? Can we hit slices? Can we hit lobs? Like how many volleys can we hit? What kind of volleys? Because this is the thing that I absolutely love about tennis, is that there's so many levels to the game. And even within those levels, you have players with different skill sets. So you could have a 4.0 player who has a great forehand, who's got a weak forehand, who's got a great slice, who's got a big serve, no rally game. And it's on you every single match in and match out, to figure out what is their weakness. And that's when you said, when you just told me about Jack Sock, that really resonated, because it's just finding out who are they that day, and what kind of game am I going to play so that I can win this match.
All right. Drills. So someone wants to work on hitting deep balls and just figuring out what to do in rallies to win points. They're out with their friends. They want to work on this. What can they do?
Great question. Cooperative and consistent is the key here for me. Start off baseline to baseline with your friend. And your goal is to push in this case, your partner, but again, the key is cooperative. Your goal is to hit heavy topspin, ideally roughly second window over the net. For those of you who don't know the terminology, first window would be if you take a tennis racket and put it on top of the net, that's your first window. 2 racket lengths, second window, etc. So second window, maybe even almost third. Heavy topspin. Now, when I say heavy topspin, doesn't mean you got to crank the ball. It just means you're creating enough acceleration, enough angle to create that heavy spin. And your goal, what you're looking for, is you're looking for that ball to rise above the baseline. Now, before you call me crazy, typically most balls rise above the baseline. What I mean is it has to be a good quality ball. So when the ball bounces, the trajectory of a ball lands on the other side of the court, against the net, it starts coming up and then eventually comes down. Now, if you make contact with the ball as it's coming up, it's called hitting it on the rise. If you're making contact at the peak, right, the apex of the height, that's hitting it on the peak of the ball. And then once it starts coming down or decelerating, that's when you're hitting it now as it's coming down. So our goal is to make sure that that tennis ball lands deep enough and well enough that as it's coming up after the bounce, it's crossing that baseline, not when it's coming down, right? Because then that allows your opponent to come in and hit it on the rise. So you're looking for the quality ball to be rising above the baseline. Now, there's a few ways to do this. You can start off simple and just work on that. And every time you do that, your partner yells 1, then you yell 2, and you go to 10, 15, 20, however many you can do.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing you can do is you can work on, take one of those banana strips or those yellow strips, markers. You can put them 3, 4, 5 feet behind the baseline. And your goal is for your partner to step on that yellow tag or the yellow marker. So hit a deep enough, high enough ball that forces them to step back and get back. And you'll see especially as a coach, it's for me, it's a great phenomenon for me to observe. Every time I tell my players, hit deep, make them get back behind the baseline, I kid you not, within 60 to 70% of the balls or the shots come back short.
Mm-hmm.
And this is really what we're talking about. That's really what you're trying to induce. You're trying to induce that short ball to make sure that you're able to now attack.
Yeah. Yeah, at the Nadal Academy, that's what they do is they just get some cones or strips or something. They basically line the base, put a line halfway between the service line and the baseline, and then you're just rallying with someone back and forth, and you're counting every single time the ball lands in that back half, and you're counting for your partner, they're counting for you, and the first person to 20 points. And it's like, and so you want your opponent, your partner, to say 20 before you say 20, because that means you hit 20 deep balls before they did.
Sounds like I should apply the Nadal Academy. Yeah.
Very good.
The key is, and this is the next step, I think, and this is one of my biggest recommendations, is make sure you don't stop there. Because oftentimes in drills, this is where we get hung up on. We practice at the club level, we practice a lot of these drills where it's a lot of baseline, and we get used to hitting these great balls. But how many, and Grant, correct me if I'm wrong, when you play your matches, how many mistakes happen, again, in the transition game? How many times you go up to the ball to hit that approach shot and boom, sail or into the net, right? It happens to me all the time. And it's not a skill we train. So just like anything else, it's a trainable, you must train this skill, learn how to hit, start practicing combos. So as you hit your 20, let's say, for example, you and your partner say, hey, first to say, I don't know, whatever, 10, 15. Once that number is hit, whoever gets a short ball first, play out the point.
Mm-hmm.
And so now you start working on combos, because now the ability to, again, switch your mind from defense, neutralize, and all of a sudden you get a short ball, you got to go into attack mode. Now, where do you go? Do you go back down the middle? Do you go side to side? What would you do, Grant?
Well, depending on where it goes, my approach shot, likely I want to approach to their backhand, unless I can hit the ball, if I can make contact with the ball, let's say for me on my forehand side, which down the line would be to a righty's forehand. But if I can make contact on that short ball above net height and drive that ball through the court, then I might go down the line because they're less likely to get there. But otherwise, I'm going to hit that ball probably cross court their backhand, because they'll likely, even if they get it, it'll make for an easier volley. And I'm not trying to go for this approach winner. I'm trying to go for this approach shot to make the volley easier.
And I was just going to ask you, when you go up to that ball, what is your objective? What is your psychological, mental objective? And I'm curious to hear your answer, because it's oftentimes people, and I'll ask players and they'll say nothing. Mm-hmm. They'll tell me they get anxious. Something that sometimes I experience is you get up to the ball in an approach shot, your mind gets anxious. and where mistakes happen. But for you, when you play, when you get that shot, what is your objective?
So I practice this so much because on the last podcast I talked about how my buddy Kirill found out I didn't like softballs, and he would feed me soft, short balls on purpose,
Yeah.
and I would miss all of them. And he won that way. He won hitting a soft, short ball. Who would have thought? Then my buddy Carson just gave me these fucking slice balls, and there was short and some were high slice loops, some were like low slices, and I was just struggling to attack and approach off them because I know that's the goal. I should be attacking and approaching off these balls
Mhm.
because they're a more defensive ball. And what was happening first, so the first thing, I have said this myself, mother effer, I'm missing all the easy balls, right? So when you get these short balls, these loops, these slices, they're short, you're like, oh my God, your eyes get wide, and you're like, this is gonna be easy.
Famous last words.
And that is the first problem because, as I and many players have experienced, these approach shots are not easy. It is a hard to take a ball that has less pace and is shorter that you have to run up to it and create your own pace off it and move your body through it with the right footwork. That is harder to do than my wife, who, she's a 3.5 and I'm a very good player. And she's like, I love playing against you because she doesn't need to move. The ball comes to her and she just literally stabs her racket and it just bounces back over the net. She's like, oh, it's so easy. And so standing at the baseline and hitting balls that come to you is a whole lot easier than running two balls forward, needing to create pace on them. And so the mindset of, oh, this is easy, I should put this away, is the first problem, because then your focus drops, your footwork and intensity drops when you think something is easier. And so the first thing was, oh my God, this is a harder ball for me, at least. And just the idea of thinking this is harder makes you try harder, makes you focus harder, makes you look harder, makes you care more. So you're more likely to do the right thing. So this is the first thing, was the mental side of it. Then it's, I'm not here to hit a winner. That was the next problem. I'm going to focus. I'm going to hit this ball super amazing. And then I would hit them too hard and out, because changing the speed of a ball is tough, and changing directions of a ball is tough. And you're sometimes doing that in approach shots. And so, hey, I'm not here to hit a winner. I'm here to set me up for an easy volley, which means I would get, when I first started getting short forehands, old school was forehand down the line. And if I cautiously hit a forehand topspin ball down the line at my level, that's right in the wheelhouse of a right-handed's forehand, and they're just going to crank a ball down the line across court, and I'm going to get past. Or they'll like it's like literally feeding them a juicy ball. So it's like, okay, on the forehand side, if I'm going to go down the line, it's got to have some pace to it, but I can still do a big target, but I got to hit with pace. Or I'm going to slice and keep the ball low and slow and actually suck the person in so that they have to run into the ball and pop the ball up and make it
Ball.
and make them hit it up. So and then if I'm doing the backhand, approach shots, I'm either trying to angle them off the court because that they might not get to it. So it doesn't have to be a great ball. Just make them run more and they're just not going to hit a nicer ball. Or a backhand with some heaviness, top spin might be tough for some people on that side. But I love the slice approach because it keeps the ball low. It slows the ball down, which gives you more time to get to the net. And because the ball is low and slow, they're more likely to hit the ball slow back. If they try to hit the ball really hard back, that, due to physics, is very difficult. They might hit the ball out. Then if they hit the ball well, they're still popping it up into the air, which then leads for a nice volley put away or overhead. And so I'm thinking when I approach that ball, this is not easy. I probably want to go their backhand, or I got to hit a really good ball to their forehand. And that good ball is either hard or it's low. If I'm going the backhand, I want to angle them out, or I want to keep it low, or hit it hard. And I'm just making one of those decisions. Is this a topspin ball or is this a slice? Is this down the line or is this angled out cross court? And you just quickly make that decision and you hit a consistent good ball and you expect it to come back, and then you follow the ball in and then you put the ball away.
That's great. I personally wouldn't, for me, I wouldn't have thought of the first one you talked about in terms of psychologically telling yourself it's a harder shot, because I feel like for me anyway, I feel like it would still have the same effect of anxiousness of like, man, this is really hard. I can't do it. Or, sometimes, well, for me, someone hits your backhand and you're like, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no, backhand, backhand, backhand. I want to avoid that feeling for me personally. So for me, psychologically, I think of one thing only: hurt your opponent. And that's the second thing that you mentioned. For me, I think of one or two things. Number one is, how do I make them show me their back? So how do I what kind of ball do I hit? How can I hit a ball either backhand or forehand? But how can I make them hit a ball, typically backhand, where they're stretching out and they show me their back? Because that's when I know, again, we're building the point so that we can put away a volley or an overhead. The second thing, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, but something that doesn't get talked about often is hitting an approach shot down the middle. Because I find oftentimes people defensive players do, and again, this requires obviously a good ball. Players defensively anticipate back and forehand, and usually they'll guess. They'll go one way or the other. So usually you can wrong foot them and you can kind of go for the ankle breaker. Or even if they stay, if you hit a deep down the middle ball, even a little bit flat, what that's going to create is potentially them just being stuck. First of all, the angle, there's no angle, but they're going to get jammed and they're going to cough up that same short, potentially volley overhead. So sometimes I do actually go for the heavy down the middle, just because it doesn't give them the space. I don't know about you. How many times do you ever, when there's a harder ball, you can get to it, or you're just getting to it, you're stretching out, but you can still get your strings on it. Versus when the ball comes right into your body, that's a much harder ball to get out of the way. So I actually do prefer, I love a good down the middle heavy ball.
Yeah, Joachim was the first person to tell me that this was an option, because it was first growing up, it was down the line. That was just like, if you're approaching, you're hitting down the line. And then the new school is, if possible, approach to their weaker side, which is typically the backhand. And you see a lot of pros doing that now. It's doing a slice approach across court to their backhand. A backhand slice righty to a righty, a backhand slice cross court to their backhand. I see a lot of them doing it now. The down the middle one, Joachim loves to do a slice down the middle, because, like you said, it wrong foots them, both going sideways, and now they got to go forward, and then they got to pop it up. And they don't have angles. Like, if you hit a low ball, someone can still flick and angle that cross court and give you some trouble if they're pushed out wide. Whereas, like you said, down the middle, there's less angle. So he likes to slice. I actually worked on this today, and I tried if I'm making contact above the net height, I'm going to drive it. That's another one of my cues that I learned was, where am I making contact with this ball? Is it below the net or is it above the net?
Now, totally. Now, before we wrap up this topic, nerd out with me for a little bit here. From a technical perspective, so you finally get this. You've been talking about creating that opportunity to get a short ball. So we finally were hitting, based on the baseline. You've induced a short ball. You're now coming in. Technically, can you walk me through what would you do? First of all, footwork wise. So what are your feet doing as you're hitting this ball? But also, what is your racket? How are you making contact with the ball? Is it different than a regular ground stroke from the baseline? Is it the same? How do because I know you just mentioned the height of the ball as well. So just walk us through it real quick. Footwork, what do you do? And in terms of the actual forehand.
I highly recommend people just go YouTube. Like this is a good one to like see a visual of someone doing it. So there's something called the hop step. So you're approaching the ball like sideways. So open stance, your shoulders are facing the net, and in this hop step, your shoulders are perpendicular to the net.
So you're turning sideways.
You're turning sideways. And when you approach the ball, you come up to it and you lean on your front foot and you jump off your front foot and land on your front foot. It's this unique, it's hard to like describe, but hopefully that kind of made sense. There's videos out there, people doing it online that show it. Just look for the hop step on your front foot. That is for the lower ball. The higher ball, you actually do an open or semi-open where it's almost like a return of serve. You load up on the outside foot in that open stance, and then you land on your opposite foot or your front foot. But it's not perpendicular, kind of semi-open, and you're hitting that high ball hard and deep. And that's and then once you land, then you continue your forward momentum to the net.
And then that's great. And then in terms of the actual path of the racket, was there anything different between that and the ground stroke?
So one of the things that I was taught that I remember when I do these shots, and just in shots in general, is where is my follow through ending? So on a low topspin flick, you got to get low with your legs and you make contact with the ball, pretty much the same. So like the contact is the same as a ground stroke. It's not more forward or behind you. It's the same as a ground stroke. It might be a little bit lower, but in terms of its positioning forward or middle or behind you, it's still like right on that front foot, right? Like a little bit in front of you. It's not, I'm not changing that.
The ball is below the net or above the net?
Yes, when the ball is below
the net.
Even both. Like maybe I'm making contact on a low ball with that hop step a little bit more in front of me because I'm doing this forward momentum hop step. But I'm not thinking about that. I'm not thinking about there's a different contact point in that plane. I'm thinking about my follow through. If it's low, I've got to whip and get that top spin to come up, but also come back down again really quickly. So my follow through is lower on my body, on my hip. When people do forehands, you can follow through at your chest height. You can follow through over your shoulder. Heck, you can do a banana over your head, or you can actually follow through lower and do a windshield wiper down into your hip, like almost like putting a sword. That was how I was really taught. You're putting a sword in your hip, and that's how you hit those low topspin approach shots.
Well, no, that's great. The reason why I ask is because I know for me personally, especially, and this is something that I teach, if you're coming in for an approach shot and the ball is above the net, because I find for me, this is where I see a huge difference in where people typically falter, is the ball is sitting quite above the net line, and they go for the same, I know how much we talk about the low to high forehand, and the ball sails. And they're trying to create a height on the ball, but the ball's already above the net. And so I always say, whenever the ball is above the net, when it's sitting above the net line,
Correct.
Your path of the racket actually wants to be more flat, more across your body, because you don't need the height. You're already above the net, and you're close to the net. Drive the ball straight.
Totally. Yeah. So yeah, above the net. Either you're going to drive that ball. You're still having a more level swing, and you're going to drive that ball down the line, or because you have height, you can actually angle that ball off to the side a lot easier. And you'll see like Nadal do this a ton, where if he gets a high ball to his forehand, he's not going to go down the line. He's going to rip that thing cross court because you got height to create that angle down into the court. And then your path can actually kind of go down if it's a high ball. And so, yeah, you definitely based on the height of the ball where you make contact, it's less of a low to high, then it becomes more of a level swing, and then it actually becomes a downward swing.
There is one last option, and I call this the Val special, is you go for the approach shot and you fake your forehand approach shot and you go for a drop shot and the ball goes into the net and you lose the point. And that's the Val special.
All right, well, here's my next situation, okay? I
Yeah.
want you to imagine, and this happens, I see this with a lot of new players, and I don't want to say new. When people start to play people better than them, one of the things they'll experience is those people have a bigger serve. They have a harder serve at all levels. As you move up in the levels, people's serves improve. And then the first time you experience the serve, it's like, oh my God, it's really hard. Like that first serve, you're
Yeah.
in shock. You freak out, you tense up, and you really struggle with that return. And so let's say you're coaching me and I'm like, Val, I just entered this tournament. This opponent, his first serve is huge. And I am just really struggling with it. I'm freaking out. I don't know what to do. How do I return this? Because the pros, Djokovic really doesn't care, probably likes a harder serve. Doesn't care if it's 140, 150, 120.
Mm-hmm.
He's got a strategy. So how do you return a hard first serve?
That's a great question. I'm actually going to start off with a slightly different approach because I'm assuming you're looking for a technical response. Before I touch the technical, I want to touch on the tactical, but more so even, not even necessarily tactical, but psychological. Oftentimes, and I see this time and time again, and I'm guilty of it as well, time and time again, you go up against a player who has a big serve. And when they hold, somehow we are not necessarily surprised, but we are upset or we are frustrated. Even Monday we're playing our doubles league, Grant. I remember, one of the guys came up to me afterwards and was like, "Hey, crap! Like I couldn't return any of your serves. I was whatever. I wasn't used to the pace." Well, what stood apart from me is that they're actually surprised, or they seemed upset that they weren't able to return. And I think it's a great reminder, and this is something that I right or wrong, I kind of tell my students, is accept the fact that the server is supposed to hold, right? They have the advantage of serving, especially if they have a great serve, they're supposed to hold. So change your mindset right away that in a way, it's kind of like akin to poker. You're free rolling. Like they're serving, they're supposed to hold, they're giving you a chance to get in the game and break them. So for me, number one is the mindset change. It's just to accept it. They're supposed to hold. So now, given the fact that they're supposed to hold, what can we do to give ourselves the best chance to get in a position so that we can get a chance to either break them and get a few points, break the rhythm, break the momentum, etc. So if it's a big first serve, your number one goal, in my opinion, should be to just neutralize the ball, get the ball back in play. You're not going for winners. You're not trying to be fancy or be cute. Get the ball back in play. So one of the drills that I personally love to do is I'll put a big target in the middle of the court, but somewhere between the service line and the baseline, closer to the baseline, a big square, and that's your target. Have them just drill first serves. It's going to be a shorter backswing, right? You're not going to because you don't have time to take a big swing at it. It's a short backswing. If you have the ability to, long follow through, right? So short backswing, long follow through. But again, if you don't have the time, it's a punch stab. Just get your short backswing, punch it back, just chip the ball back in deep. We talked about this last week. Give them a chance to miss, right? So you're looking for them to have their +1. They probably want their +1, but guess what? They probably want their +1 to be short. They're looking for either their serve and volleying, or they're looking for you to give them that opportunity to come in and attack the next point. Don't give them that. So look to just neutralize the point on the middle, deep, so then you can now get in a position to recover. And now you've neutralized the point. You've taken away the advantage of their big serve. Now you're in the point, do the rest of your homework. That'd be my approach.
So I love the mindset thing, because my thing is, The people with the biggest serves have the shittiest plus ones.
What? You already said that.
What? And I have a big serve, and my plus one was fucking dog shit for a long time. And what happens is, so know this: people with big serves really want to just get free points off that serve. They want a forced error or an ace. And when that ball comes back, they're like, fuck, damn it, I got to hit a ball. And then they're freaking out themselves that they got to hit another ball because they're like, shit, if I miss, then I am an idiot and I'm a horrible holder and server and serve plus one person, which they never want to do because there's so much pressure on that second ball to do a good job with it.
Can I just interject real quick? It's funny they mentioned that because that literally what happened to me 2 days ago. I was playing singles against a good friend of mine, and he's a solid 4-0 player. And again, I have a fairly decent. I can, if I'm holding, I can usually win matches. That's how I win my matches. When I do win my matches, is my serve. And this guy's returning all of my serves. And to your point, I'm losing all of these free points off of the return because he's returning everything deep, slightly low. It was actually out of my wheelhouse, so I couldn't really attack it. But the biggest thing is, to your point, I'm guilty of it. I'm so used to being able to hit either aces or just get nothing back. I was serving, I wasn't recovering, and now I'm like, I'm watching it. And the ball comes back, and I'm like, crap, I gotta get it, and now I'm late. And to your point, I was up 2-love, and quickly I went down 2-3. Now, luckily, I coached myself, I snapped back into it, and all of a sudden I started recovering quicker. Ended up winning 6-3. But to your point, big serve,
Yeah.
absolutely not expecting to get anything back, and I was losing so many free points.
So first, know that like if you can get it in, as you said, like the goal is just get it in, make them hit a second shot. Like you have won just by doing that because you're not really supposed to statistically, as you said. My other big tip for returning serves, apart from, I swear, when I smoke a joint, the ball slows down so much. Like it feels to me like the whole game slows down and the ball just gets bigger and slows down. So when I'm not stoned playing tennis, which the whole podcast, there's so many people who do this. I was shocked at how many people in the tennis game, smoke weed, take CBD, do gummies, do something. Okay, there's a whole little dark world.
I'm actually curious, total sidetrack. Is that legal in ITF tournaments?
There's in Masters, there's no WADA, there's no drug testing.
Okay, interesting.
So yes, technically. Now, if you're in an indoor club, like no, but like yeah, like you could, it's possible. But the problem is, you might burn out and totally tank after like an hour of peaking. But so what I do when I'm in matches and not is deep breaths. When you take a deep breath on a return, just in general in life, if you just do it now, things will slow down and calm down. It's surprising how much time you have even when the ball's coming at you at 120 miles an hour. So by taking a deep breath, by standing further back, you just give yourself more time. And then, as you said, keep it simple. Short backswing, short fall. Like at the beginning, short follow through, just a little bunt, a little just block. And you just go, my goal is down the middle. And if I miss hit on either side, because I'm aiming down the middle, I will still probably get it in. And then you just put a lot of pressure on that server to get that +1 in. So any drills you recommend for people to work on their first serve returns?
Yeah, so one thing that I really recommend is, again, going back to footwork, is number one, being ready to receive that serve. So obviously split step. Grant, help me out. When do we split step when we're returning?
When they make contact with the ball.
Perfect. Right? So the ball goes up, the toss goes up, you go into your split step as making contact. I would actually argue you want to, this is obviously an opinion, I would actually say land as a making, you're about to land as a making contact.
So favor on the side of being slightly late, because then you also get to see the direction of the ball when
Correct.
you land. So yes,
Because again,
so
the point of the split step is to
slightly after when they make contact. Yeah.
exactly, because the point of the split step is again is to have an explosive step, and then from there we touched on this earlier in terms of footwork. Again, bear with me if you're a right-handed player. Really, and this is really I find just very unintuitive to what we do as tennis players. As a right-handed player, if they're serving to your forehand, stepping out with your right foot with again short backswing, and then hopping onto your left foot and just again just blocking that ball. So just be what oftentimes where we falter is we actually back up, and I do this as well. Sometimes I back up on the return, and so you're actually observing the pace. You want to step in with a slightly open face of your racket to just chip the ball back. So my thing is I say work on step out with your right for the forehand for a righty, hop onto your left, or backhand, step out with your left, hop forward with your right foot, and again racket out in front. Um, have a solid base, strong wrist, and again this is just practice this because it's a I don't know about you, Grant. For me, it's a feel thing. There's a certain feel.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes when the ball comes in really hot, and you're very very stiff, the ball can just trampoline right out, and it's super long. So you got to find a good balance between when is your wrist, how much softness do you need in your wrist to get that appropriate trampoline effect to get the ball deep, but ultimately strings towards the target, solid foundation, have your weight behind it. For me, the footwork is probably one of the most important things there. Yeah, how about you?
So two coaches. So Henry Choi, when I was like playing at Worlds with him and at tournaments, I was like, hey man, I want to get my returns in. We're playing doubles together. I want to get more of my returns in. He's like, return with your body, not with your hands. And so just by that, like just using your body more to go to the ball, into the ball, it just takes the pressure off of some crazy thing you got to do with your arms and hands. And then this other coach is like, for most people, the answer is softer hands. Like most people don't have a problem with their hands are too soft. Everyone's gripping that racket way too hard. Most people. He's like, literally, the answer is probably softer hands. Loosen the grip,
Mhm.
And so just keeping it simple and being like, okay, I'm gonna simple swing, use my body, soft hands, watch the ball hit the racket, aim down the middle, keep it simple.
Love it.
Okay, and then when you go out with your friends and you play a match, you'll get to experience some first serves, but they're going to be missing a bunch. They're going to miss 60, 50, 40% of them or more, and so to just be like, hey, you practice your first serve, I'm going to practice my returns, and vice versa. And just telling your friends, like, hey, let's just spend 15, 30 minutes today. You work on your first serves, I'll work on my first serve returns, and we'll rotate. And just collaborating. Like, even tennis is such an interesting sport like
Mhm.
that, where it's this, I think you said it, like it's a collaborative cooperation. What did you say?
Cooperative points.
Cooperative. Yeah. Like,
Well, there's cooperative, there's competitive.
yeah,
But I'm so
it's,
happy. I'm so happy that you brought that up because even on this, you think, hey, we're going to work on our serves. And so many times people go up just practice on their serving, and the returner is thinking, okay, I'm here. They're practicing their serve. I'm just going to hear. No, no, no. You got to find something to work on. So if they're working on their first serves, what are you working on? You're not just a dummy on the court. Find a drill, this is, we talked about this on the last episode. We're talking about mini tennis wasting time, just hitting balls for the sake of hitting balls. Every single time you're on court, if you're not playing a match, even if you are, especially if you're running drills, if you're on the court, you should always be working on something. It's not, you're never just there. They have a target, you have a target. That's it.
I got to go to Calgary and plan my trip. Let's end it right here. That's the pod. Training over. Hope this helps you all master the sport of tennis.